Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is going to be another in my practice session series for the Red Hat Exam EX374 Red Hat Certified Specialist in Developing Automation with Ansible Automation Platform. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed yet, to click the subscribe button. And if you enjoy the video or find it useful, make sure you click like. I also want to remind everyone that these are my practice sessions in preparation for the exam. So the idea is I will talk about an objective, maybe try to do some examples and such of it, in hopes that at the end of the video, I'll feel pretty confident in whatever the objective is talking about. And if so, then all is good. If not, I have just under 2 weeks left before my exam, and that gives me a little bit of time to either brush up or try to fill some knowledge gaps. These videos are not intended to be tutorials, nor are they intended to be training materials. That being said, I do try to have the information as accurate as I can, since I myself am learning and I'm trying to prepare for the exam. Hopefully these videos, if you're watching, might give you some ideas of how you can also do some preparation for the exam and such, but they are not official training materials or anything like that. So with this video, I'm going to move into the transform data with filters and plugins part of the objectives. And I'll go ahead and say that this is an area that I'm going to be rehearsing and practicing a good bit, really between now and the exam. I tend to stop my preparation a couple of days before the exam because you're not going to learn anything new there. I might do some review and such. But this will be a section that I'm reviewing and going over a good bit. I'll do okay with my video today, but of the areas, this is the weakest. And one of the reasons so is, if you know anything about Ansible, there are hundreds of filters and plugins that you can, or by plugins I mean lookup plugins that you can utilize. And so it's not feasible to, or I mean, maybe some Ansible master is versed in all of them, but mere mortals like me, it is not feasible to know all of this stuff. And one thing that is particularly challenging with filters is, to my knowledge, there is no offline documentation for filters. I think there was in some earlier versions of Ansible. You do Ansible doc-t filter-l and have some of the basic filters. But I think since the split off with having, Ansible core and collections and all that, filters are not a part of Ansible doc anymore. So that is both challenging and concerning. Challenging in the fact that, you're not going to have as much stuff to reference during the exam, but if you've done any Red Hat exam in the past, yeah, you can reference stuff, but you can't solely rely on that documentation. You obviously need to know your stuff to do well with the exam. And it's also scary in the fact that you aren't going to have anything to reference. So there are a few filters when I get to that particular objective that I'm going to try to rehearse in my practice sessions that I think are probably common enough that they would be good candidates for the exam. Obviously, I'm not going to know. And even if I did know, I couldn't tell you because of NDA and such. But that is one of the challenges with this. So enough excuses, right? I have to get into it. So I'll be looking at populate variables with data using external sources, or from external sources using lookup plugins. And this is something that I don't do that often with my day-to-day work with Ansible. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but the playbooks and such that I've had to write for our infrastructure at work, I haven't had to make use of many lookup plugins. So as a result, a lot of this, when I was first starting to prepare for this exam, was new to me. I had touched some lookups just sparingly, but as far as having them under my fingers, that is relatively new. So what I'm going to do is just practice a couple here and kind of show the concepts and show where you can look up some documentation regarding lookup plugins. One key thing to remember when dealing with lookups, and I believe this is true for almost all lookups, might be true for 100%, I don't know, but I know that when you're using lookups, the things that you are looking up with it are things that are going to be on the system from which you're running Ansible, basically your control node. So if you're doing this using Ansible Navigator that is using execution environments, you have to keep that in mind because it's going to be looking for those files in the execution environment. And actually, I can show you an example of this. I've finally got around to setting up Ansible Navigator, all that good stuff. So I have a little repo called filter test. This is where I was doing some of my practicing. And let me cat Ansible Navigator.yml. This is the config.yml. There we go. And what I'm going to be using when I'm using Ansible Navigator by default is the supported execution environment supported RHEL 8. This is a part of the Ansible Automation Platform subscription, which I don't have a subscription to that, but I have my Red Hat developer subscription, which allows me to be able to use Ansible Automation Platform. So let us write, actually we're going to make a little text file here. So we're going to call it good old foo.txt, and we'll put some sentences here. The quick brown fox jumps, is it jumps or jumped? I think it's jumps over the lazy dog. Yeah, because jumped, you would not have the S. All right. So I have my little text file here, and we're going to make foo.yml. And we're just going to run this against one of the hosts. There's no sense in doing this multiple times. So we'll call this show the file lookup. We'll do this against AAP node 1. Don't need to become for this. Tasks. We'll just use the debug. That's what built-in debug. Actually, let's see. I want to make sure I want to populate variables with data from external. Okay, so let me define a variable and do this. You know, technically, it's kind of what I'm doing, but I could set the variable at the task level too. Let me do that. So vars, just going to call it data, and we are going to look up. And the syntax I'm finding for this is you're going to use, and I will be using the fully qualified name for these kind of things, built-in file in quotes, and then what you're going to be looking up. So this is going to be foo.txt. Might not have to do the / I might try it without. And for this, we're going to just show the data var. This should work. Famous last words in IT, right? Now I'm going to run this just with Ansible Playbook, and then we're going to do Ansible Navigator and see what the difference is. So Ansible Playbook, foo.yml, and let's see what happens. Oh, yep, syntax error. Those of you watching probably caught it. I need to close the lookup. All right, let's try this again. Okay, so it populated the variable data with what I had in that file, which the /n's are all of the line breaks with that. Now I'm going to run this with Ansible Navigator, and let's see what happens. So Ansible Navigator. I don't have to do m standard out because I've already set that with the Ansible Navigator file. So let's see what happens here. That I wasn't expecting, because I was expecting it to be looking at the execution environment. I know for a fact that there is no file in the execution environment that has this. So I might need to do a little bit more reading on that, because I was fairly sure lookups happen on the local system. And let me try this. Let me change this to localhost. And let's see what happens. So we'll do it as the playbook. We're using the playbook command. All right, that's what I expected. And now we'll do it with Ansible Navigator. Well, learn something every day. I have to put that to the test with some other stuff, or I need to go back and do some more reading. As I said, this is not a super strong area for me, but that particular lookup plugin is basically taking the contents of a file, and there are many different lookup plugins. A way you can find what you have available to you. So I'm going to do Ansible Navigator for this. I do like, And I'm hit or miss with actually using Ansible Navigator. If I want to get into using execution environments a lot, then obviously I'll have to use it. I don't think it's a bad tool, but when you've used Ansible Playbook and all the other individual Ansible commands for so long, it's kind of difficult to get used to something new. I do like how they handle their documentation stuff though. So Ansible Navigator doc-t lookup, oops, and we'll do -l. And these are all of the different lookups. The ones that don't have a fully qualified name, these are built-in ones. So the Ansible built-in file is what I used. And with these various lookups, let's take a look at Ansible built-in file. So I can do Ansible Navigator doc-t lookup, and I'm going to try to use the fully qualified name. Otherwise, I might just have to use just file. Nope, it showed it. So, what you would expect to see out of this, you have examples and such, and also it kind of shows you how to do your loops with that particular lookup, which is another part of the objectives. One I have used before is file glob, and this let me make a directory here. So we're going to do make dir test, and we're going to put some files in here. Test file 1, test file 2, dev file 1. I probably could have done a little more efficient syntax, but so we have those 4 files there. And this time we're just going to keep using our foo.yml. We're going to change this to file glob. What file glob will give you is a list of files matching whatever it is that you have given for it to match. And so what I mean by this is, and we're seeing how well my memory works. So within the test dir, I want to see all files that start with test. Yeah, we'll keep that at localhost. And we'll do Ansible Playbook first. So what this should return is test file 1, test file 2. So Ansible Playbook, foo.yml. And let's see what happens. I'm able to find, did I? Oh, I just called it test. That's what I get for doing my videos when I'm tired, right? I feel like I'm kind of tired all the time. All right, this should be a little bit more effective. All right, and actually what we get is not a list as far as how Ansible likes lists. I remember that's one of the differences between lookup and query. But we have comma separated value of, here is, that's interesting how it does that, test file 1 and test file 2. What I am curious of, what happens when I don't do the dot? Okay, that's what I wanted to see as far as the full path to the file. And where I have had this useful before, I think what I used was query instead of lookup, so that way I got an actual Ansible list. But I had written a role one time that depending on the file name, the role would execute the thing for RHEL and the thing for Ubuntu and the thing for Debian and such. And so I had a file glob thing that looked for the appropriate part of the file name to grab the appropriate item that we want. Let's see, I think that's really about it with file glob. I'm going to change it to query real quick, even though that's technically on a different objective, but I want to see if we can see the difference in the resulting syntax. It'll show us that. Yeah, see how this has now been made into a list. So I find that to be more useful than lookup the times that I've done stuff. But let's go back. We're going to change it back to lookup, and we're going to try this with the execution environment and see what we get as a result. So Ansible Navigator, run foo.yml. Okay, again, I was sure that, because I know if you normally run stuff with localhost, it's going to run against your execution environment, unless it's not running an execution environment. Let me do this. Let me copy this here, and I'll explicitly say this is the execution environment I want to use. Actually, what I'll do, I'll blow away my Podman images. So that'll make it have to download the execution environment. All right, it'll probably, I need to authenticate. Okay, let me clear my screen. And now this should pull down the execution environment image and run. So we know for a fact it's going to be using this execution environment. It's probably going to work just fine, contrary to what I thought. Probably can hear my laptop fan spinning up. I like my Lemur Pro. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it takes much to get the fans going. Yep, so I stand corrected on the lookup stuff. But that was file glob. Trying to think let me go back to that lookup list to see what other common ones I think might be good candidates for exam stuff. Ansible, Navigator, doc, T, lookup, L. I can think of more filters that would potentially be used. So we got file globs, list files, list and pattern. Lines is a good one, I think. So we'll take a look at that. So let's take a look at lines. Lines is an interesting one. So this you can run a command with the lines lookup, and whatever it reads, it's going to read that back. It's going to read the lines back as a list. So let's do let's see, Ansible built-in lines, and this is where I'm not 100% sure on my syntax, but we'll find out. I don't know if that has to be in quotes or not, but it'll complain to us if it isn't. So what was that, foo.text? Let's see what happens here. But it's going to complain about syntax, yeah. Of course, you can look up the documentation for a plugin to see its syntax, but I think I'll get it with this. If this doesn't work, then I'll take a look at the documentation. But as I said, these are lookups I don't often have to use, so it's not stuff that's readily under my hands, which I'm going to have to review. Oh, there it is. Oh, so it's just comma separated. I was expecting it to give a list. So let's take a look at the doc real quick. Ansible built-in lines. Doesn't give you a whole lot of examples, does it? Doing the with lines, and you have your command and then the parameter. Doesn't tell you a whole lot about it, does it? Just reads them as a list. Even though that was a comma separated value thing, it didn't have the brackets or the square brackets I was expecting for a list. But as far as this this objective, I believe this is what it's wanting to do. You have a variable, you're giving that value using files and such that are external to the playbook itself, and you're using lookup plugins to do it. I mean, there may be more to this. I'll see. I'll do some more practice, and sometimes what I have done with objectives is like Google the text of the objective, and there may be Red Hat documentation that appears. That I remember during my RHCSA prep, I had to do that with, I think it was with VDO and such, and it was searching through Red Hat's own documentation that I realized, oh, this is what they meant by the objective, and that might be something with this. But as far as I were just plain reading this, I would interpret what I have done with these examples to be that. So I'm going to consider this a pass, but understanding that, yes, I need to just generally become a bit more familiar with some what I would think would be common plugins, so I'm not having to rely as much on the documentation. So if you found the video useful, make sure you do click like, and I want to thank returning subscribers again for watching another video, and invite you, if you haven't subscribed yet, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell when you do, so you know when new content comes available. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you the next time.